and welcome back to Be Brave, Be You. Here today with me is Jacqueline Camacho-Ruiz. I'm so excited to have you today. I'm super excited to meet you. I'm here in her beautiful home. And how do you do it, Jacqueline? Tell us a little bit about yourself, your past, your present, where you're going in the future. Tell us a little bit about your personal story.
Thank you so much for having me. That's a loaded question, right? Mm-hmm. Where are you? Who are you? Where have you been? Where are you now? And where you would like to be. I'll try to summarize it in the best way I can. I am the only girl in a family of 3 and the youngest. And by default, I was mommy's girl. And I was always with my mom, and unbeknownst to her, she didn't know that by being with her all the time with motivational books and audiobooks and conferences, that she was creating a little monster inside. And little did I know that impact of being exposed to motivational content at an early age was going to have on me. And I sort of became an experiment of personal development, so to speak. And,
almost like a sponge, right?
Taking it all sponge experiment, a test of nature.
How old were you when you first started kind of hearing to that,
well, I was 4 when I started reading.
4? Wow, yeah. Okay.
And I was always very good at school. I mean, I love school. If I could be in school forever, I'd just be a forever student. And I think I am a forever student of life, but yes. I just love school so much. And so I started reading those books, and I didn't know what half of the things meant, because it just was like, what does mastermind mean? And what, helping and serving others, like making them more important than you, and like, oh, because I was a little girl, I was like, oh, the center of the universe.
What does this all mean? Okay.
Yeah, like, aren't I the center of the universe? And then I'm like, no, I'm not. And I started realizing, and it was through my own discovery of being a spoiled little girl, to sort of discovering the power through those books of making others feel important and making others feel special and allowing your knowledge to help other people. And so I came to the United States when I was 14. I was born in Mexico City, lived in Mexico City for about 7 years. Went to a very small town called Malpaso in the municipality of Calvillo in Aguascalientes, which is right in the center of Mexico. Okay. And it was a shock for me, because I went from the biggest city in the world at that time to a very, very small town. It was shocking. But again, books would take me out of what I was experiencing sometimes, because the girls were like, "Whoa, you came from Mexico, you must be rich, you're from the big city." And I'm like, no, we're not rich, we're surviving like you, and we're trying to do our best. And so that is kind of like sort of the, born in Mexico City, moved to Malpaso when I was 7 to 14, I lived there. And then when I was 14 years old, we embarked on the biggest journey of our lives, which is to come to the United States. Oh, okay. And I've been here since I was 14, so that's been about 22 years of my life in this beautiful country that has allowed me to survive cancer with the most advanced medical treatment, has allowed me to write 15 books, has allowed me to start 2 businesses in this capitalist economy. A marketing agency that has been, the business of our lives, my husband and I, and then a publishing house where I publish authors from all over the world and for all over the world. I started a nonprofit here, started a nonprofit in Mexico, and became one of the few Latina sports airplane pilots, licensed sport airplane pilots in the U.S. That's awesome. So it's a small, very tiny percentage of that. But where am I going? Lots of places. My first priority is to stay alive, especially when you've touched, you know, you've been on the line between life and death.
Tell us a little bit about that, if you don't mind sharing a little bit about what you went through.
Yeah, so I was 21 the first time I was diagnosed with cancer, and it was, as you can imagine, a shock for everybody and everyone. And you know, I didn't have to go through chemo. I went through surgeries and laser things, and they ended up removing a big part of my cervix, which then meant that I was probably not going to be able to have children. So I mean, that was a shock. That was and it took a lot of what I learned as a little girl, of things that you can do to get yourself centered and get yourself aligned with joy, and take care of yourself, take care of your body, to really come back from that. And just know that I wasn't going to die. And I knew that from that one, I probably wasn't going to die. I mean, I'm still checking every 6 months to make sure that nothing comes back, and knock on wood, nothing has. But then the second time, it was kind of interesting because it was a full-blown cancer. It was pre-cancer level 4. Now in Mexico, they don't recognize the pre-cancers. Here in the United States, they do. And basically level 4 is right before full-blown cancer. And what was really critical about this is that it was by my liver. And it was in one of the little bile ducts that connects the gallbladder to the liver. And I was born with this. I was a time bomb without even knowing.
Wow.
When I started my marketing agency, I go to an Indian restaurant, and out of the corner of my eyes, I was leaving, I noticed 3 little containers, and one of them was purple, and I love purple. Everybody knows that I love purple. I have a purple car, okay, that tells you how much I love purple, thanks to my husband. I think sometimes I'm crazy, and I'm like, wow, you really are over the top.
You really like purple.
Yeah, it's like, you're crazy than me. And so I took this container, which happened to be, unbeknownst to me, the queen of spices. Now, this was an Indian restaurant. Didn't know anything about Indian food, except that I had just been verbally hired to do their marketing. And it was my first client. So, I put this in my mouth to clean your palate, because, you know, South Asian individuals do that after a meal to clean your palate. I didn't have a meal, but I had a great marketing conversation, so to me that was a big meal. And put it in my mouth, and within 10 minutes, just by me, my world changed. Wow. It was like, wow, what's happening? And long story short, I experienced a whole bunch of symptoms, really weird, really unusual, and I thought I was dying, including pain, excruciating pain that had me curling up on, you know, on the floor, and my mom didn't know what to do. Finally, you know, went to the emergency room. 2 weeks later, and after 40 doctors, they found that I was born with this very rare congenital condition. Well, congenital, yes. And it happens out of 150,000 people in this part of the world. And I had type 2, which is 3% of the cases found. So at that point, I felt very, very lucky. I felt like I had won the lottery twice, backwards.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, this spice that caused the cyst that I was born with to swell up and cause all these very weird symptoms, ultimately saved my life and saved me. Yeah. And I didn't know, I had no idea that that was my fate. Like the doctor gave me no more than 3-year prognosis. If it hadn't been detected, they had to reconstruct my entire digestive system to be able to survive. And I was at the risk of being fed out of a tube for the rest of my life. Wow. Dying over the next 2 weeks because this new digestive system would leak bile into the organs and disintegrate them. And 3, live a normal life. And again, I went back to my books, I went back to my meditations, my prayers, and everything that had gotten me to get over the first time. And I said, here we go again, let's do this. And I'm here, I'm alive.
Yeah. So you definitely know someone's watching over you, right?
All of
That's a
us.
blessing. That's a blessing. Yeah. So yeah, God is definitely watching over you. That's a blessing, and I'm glad that you're here. So that's very powerful. I want you to kind of go back to an experience in your life where you felt, okay, this was kind of like my turning point, or this was a major obstacle that I faced, where I got so uncomfortable, but yet I was brave enough to surpass it. I mean, being a cancer survivor is, definitely, being brave and praying about it and coming through that is a wonderful thing. But share with me some of the things that you struggled to become the person that you are today.
I think, I always say that I could probably find out 300 plus reasons to cry for the next 300 years in my life. And I'm pretty sure if we dig in our lives, we could probably do the same. I think the spirit of knowing that you are more than what happens to you. I have so many experiences. I'll share a couple. One is when I was 11 years old. I was in Mexico in this small hometown, and for the same reason that I mentioned to you earlier, that people thought we were rich and we were making all this money. Somebody actually burned our house in Mexico, and I was playing in the plaza of the town, and people started coming up to me and saying, "Jackie, your house is on fire." And I couldn't believe it. I'm like, "What do you mean my house is on fire?" And of course, sure enough, my house was located in the highest point of the town, and the flames were engulfing my house. And the one thing I kept thinking about was, I don't care about my toys, I care about my books. And when we got inside the house, finally, after the fire had subsided, and after all the neighbors came back with buckets of water, because there's no firemen, I discovered that 80% of those books were burnt, completely gone. And it was shocking. It was like one of the first, probably the first, like most devastating experience for an 11-year-old. Like, it was devastating.
Because that was your world right there.
That was my home. That was my home. And I just I got a little ray of sunshine in that moment. I said, I've already read this book, so now I really have to make these books come to life. And I focused wholeheartedly on becoming the person that the books were talking about.
Okay.
And because I said, well, if Napoleon Hill used the principles, if Dale Carnegie used the principles, if Aguandino, Alex Day, and all these amazing people use them, Zig Ziglar, I could use them too. We're humans, we're all humans. So little did this young Mexican girl knew that that was going to change my life. And that's one. The second one is when I had a terrible landing after my second landing in the solo challenge, in the basically your first solo flight as a pilot.
Okay.
You have to take off 3 times, you have to land 3 times. So after the second landing, that was the most horrible landing to date. With my family watching, I had to really dig deep and find every ounce of courage and strength so that I can take off again. Because if I didn't, I wouldn't have successfully completed my solo, and I probably would not have flown again, ever again. That's how bad it was. Luckily, it wasn't an accident or anything, but it was pretty bad. I was wiping my tears on the way back to the runway to take off again, and I called the tower and I was hoping that they would say, "No, you can't take off." But of course they said yes, because I'm the pilot in command, asking them permission.
Yes.
So I took off, and I had the mix of the confidence that I had the first time, and the humility from the second time, and the vulnerability from the time that it took me to land to decide that I was going to do it again, and then all the courage in the world to say, I am going to take off again and I'm going to complete my solo.
And I'm going to do it.
So I did it, and it's opened. I have over 100 hours of flight now, close to 300 landings. I have
Wow.
6
Okay.
women that are getting their pilot's license because they flew with me and they were inspired and motivated. I've given away 2 scholarships to young ladies that want to fly, and
That's awesome.
that's what I do.
That's awesome. So tell me a little bit, I have here some of her books that she's written, but tell me, I know this one really strikes me as one of the key ones that I know you're creating a whole movement behind that. Today's Inspired Latina. How did that come about? When was that moment when you decided, okay, I'm going to do this?
Well, so I had published 6 books on my own.
Prior to that?
Prior to this one. This was my...
Which one out of these were the first one that you
This is my first baby!
That's the first, okay, that's the baby,
First
okay.
book, published in 2010, after 3.5 years of just capturing my experiences as an entrepreneur, and about 7 months of putting that together. Very exciting. And then I had the book about my life, which I don't have. I have a total of 15, as I mentioned.
Okay.
These are,
okay.
5 of the 15, so I'm missing 10.
Okay,
But this is Today's Latina Volume 5 that we just launched in Chicago and at the New York Times in September. And then a month later I went to launch Volume 6, which was in Europe.
Okay.
With 20 amazing women from Sweden, Belgium, Germany, France, you name it, I mean, all over the world. Latinas that live in Europe. Isn't that amazing?
Wow.
With my amazing friend Veronica Sosa. And then my aviation book, my Spanish book and English, right there. The amazing Mundo de la Aviación, which is my little stake on the ground to inspire kids to fly.
Okay, that's nice.
Like the Pilotina. And
this is the recent one, right?
This is my 10th book. This is the
Okay.
book that I wrote with my husband.
Okay, that's nice.
It's the most beautiful book we've ever done. And it has his voice and my voice, so it spells the word amazing. So there's those chapters. And then he takes on basically his take on that chapter, and I do the same. So there's this little avatars that distinguish who's actually speaking
Oh, that's
for that
cute.
chapter. It's
Okay,
really cool.
I like that.
It took Juan Pablo about 3 months to decipher how to take this word, how to combine his personality with mine, because we're totally opposite and totally complementary at the same time. And it's like, but how do you give that experience to the reader? So it's highly innovative, totally different and beautiful, and with the love of my life. So.
That's good. Wonderful. I'm so excited for you. So I know with the Today's Inspired Latina book, you're creating a whole movement. You're doing book tours and stuff like that. When you created, what happened first before you started publishing your books? Did you create your marketing agency first and then the books came after, or how did that happen?
So in the sequence of events, JJ Marketing came first.
Okay. So that was just an idea that...
I was 23.
Okay. How did that happen? Because, for people that are thinking about an idea, that want to become like an entrepreneur, like, how do you get to this point? Tell them about how you actually did it.
Wow. First, you have to have a relentless desire to serve.
Okay.
I mean, you have to have something that you're really good at. And you might not recognize what you're good at, but listen to what people are saying.
Okay.
If people say, wow, you're a great speaker. I love the way you share stories. I love the way you tie your shoes. Whatever they say, listen to what feedback you're getting.
That's a golden nugget, by the way.
Yes. Ding! Golden nuggets for you.
Capture.
But I think that's one. And then two, you have to understand that anything that is worth in life is going to take time. And time and time and time again. But also time in the manifestation of your dreams is irrelevant. Because once you decide that you're going to serve, you're going to do something, then everything that leads you to it could take you 4 years, it could take you a few months,
Hey
it
guys.
could take you 2 years, it could take you 3 months, it could take you a lifetime, right? All that though, it's part of you. So 23, I said, I'm in the land of opportunity. I am going to create something. And what people kept telling me over and over again was, you are a really good marketer. You know how to tell people stories. You know how to connect with people. You know how to activate people to take action. I didn't know that was marketing. I thought it was sales, but it wasn't sales, it was marketing. So it's like sales kind of led me to marketing, kind of led me to public relations. And the way I see it is, I mean, I was 14 when I came to the States. I didn't speak a word of English.
Okay.
And at 23, I was creating a marketing communications agency in English.
Wow.
Working primarily with Caucasian CEOs. So imagine the guts that it takes,
Yes.
the courage that it takes. And that's why I said at the beginning, you have to have a relentless mission to serve and to elevate other people. And you have to have encapsulated what your value is, based on the feedback that you've got, based on what seems to come flawlessly to you. And to me, it's always been an area of communications. It's always been extracting things, creating a process, encapsulating intellectual property in books, in speaking engagements, in ideas, board games, products, productivity journals, deck of cards. I mean, I've created a gazillion products, it seems like, and so many brands from this flow of ideas.
So I know that your agency is an award-winning agency, correct?
Yeah.
I think you won like about, what, 14 awards or something around there?
Between the
Okay.
agency, I mean, probably over close to 30 awards.
Okay.
For entrepreneurship, for business acumen. We've been named one of the top B2B PR agencies in Chicago for the 3rd consecutive year. We were number 10 and we went to number 6, now we're number 4. This 3rd year, yes, we've won many awards for our clients' campaigns as well. We're actually runner-ups for a big award right now. That is, we won it in Chicago for a $25 million renovation campaign that we did for Oak Brook Hills Resort. And then that qualified us as the first place, qualified us to go to nationals. So
awesome.
in about a few days we find out if we won the national.
Oh, okay.
So
But it's also being passionate about what you're doing. It's something that you have to like as well. Would you agree about that?
You have to. I mean, you have to love it to the point where you say, this is not work. I mean, I don't think, since I decided to start my agency, this is going to sound disruptive. I have not stopped working one day of my life, even Sundays. Even if I just plant a little seed, a little idea on that Sunday to continue to transcend to the next day, I have not worked a day in my life, but I have not stopped working a day of my life since the last 13 years, since I became an entrepreneur. Then came my first book. So my son inspired me to create my business. Because I'm like, well, now we have to feed another little mouth, right? And he was
That's
such
a big motivator.
beautiful little kid, and so Leo inspired me to start my company. Juliana, on the other hand, she's inspired me to write this book.
Okay.
Because I had already gone through, and now we have a, oh, maybe I can show you this.
Yeah, show them.
This is the one that I was telling you about. It's so beautiful. Look at that.
That is so nice.
Just, captivating.
I like that.
But anyway, I was actually talking about the other book, right?
So tell us a little bit, now that you're speaking about Juliana, tell us a little bit about the nonprofit organization that you have where you work with young women. Tell us a little bit about that. How did that got inspired, and how did that all begin?
Well, you know what? As we accommodate these books here, oh, you know what? I'm gonna put this one right here.
It wants to stand out.
Okay, the book can stay here. So 5 years ago, I was celebrating 31 years on this planet.
Okay.
And I was very nostalgic. because I realized that I was not going back anymore. I was inside the 30s. 31 is like you're inside. 30, you're sort of like tippy-toeing into the 30s. 31, you're inside the 30s. So I decided to do a big birthday party. And for me, my take on a birthday party is invite a whole bunch of women, make them feel like princesses for a day, and then bring them a whole bunch of gifts. And I rented a castle, medieval times.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay.
And they all became princesses for a day, and then I had this divine download to ask people, what do you think about, what is your dream? Oh my God. We were crying the entire time because everybody that got up and shared what their dream was also said the reason why they're not going to achieve that dream. And I kept hearing,
oh, wow.
I mean, it was like crazy. I was like, wait a minute, is this my birthday party? Is this how I want to celebrate?
Wow. Are we celebrating?
What did I get myself into here? But then I was like, oh my God, that's crazy. And of course, I had already been on the journey of this success path of, business and abundance and things. So I was like, wow, really? People are going through this? Because, you kind of tend to forget, if you're not living things day to day, if you're not immersed in that environment, you tend to forget all the struggles that you went through on a day-to-day basis, right?
Yes.
I mean, you remember them when you're having an interview like this, but every day you're kind of hustling and you're doing what you need, but you're not thinking, like I'm not carrying all the baggage from 20 years ago because I can't. It's too heavy for me to keep moving forward and creating and
yes.
Aligning that. So they said, I have no money, I have no support, and I have no role models. And I'm like, oh my God, you don't. This is crazy. So anyway, I decided that everybody should vote for the person that inspired me the most, and they did. They voted for this young lady that was already 16 years old, Nancy Carrillo, whose dream was to have a quinceañera and be a princess for a day.
Oh wow, okay.
Her sister had left the house, they didn't know where she was, and it was a very difficult time for the family. And I was like, well, congratulations, you won, like you're voted the most inspiring, and kind of left it at that. I gave her a flight and a little plane and then a shopping spree and, But then a friend of mine, Beatriz Catu, said, hey Jackie, why don't you do a quinceañera for her? And I said, say again? Like you mean like a wedding kind of party? Yeah, I'll help you. Oh my God, I was about to have knee surgery. I'm like, how am I going to do this? God, please help me. What do I do? Am I supposed to do this? Because I'm already so busy with my businesses and all that. In the surgery, her and I decided to do it. We did a medieval times. She had a prince dressed in white with a white horse, delivered the crown.
Wow, that's nice.
We had dresses, photo shoots. She became the face of quinceañera marketing for medieval times. She got a scholarship from Dale Carnegie. She was featured in a TV documentary.
All that happened.
All that happened because of that one day, because I was feeling nostalgic about the fact that I was 31.
Oh.
And from there, the foundation started. To date, we've served 140 young Latinas, ages 12 to 25. 31 of those amazing young Latinas have been from Mexico, from Universidad de Guanajuato. They basically work their tail off to get their tickets for the plane. And the foundation takes care of everything else. We find them homes, we feed them for 5 days, and we host them. We do a 2-day course with them. And so I have 140 daughters scattered all over the world, primarily in the United States and Mexico. And to me, you know what, that is like, I don't know why God, like I get emotional, like found me to do this work. I know there's a need, and we were talking earlier that every award that I get, I'm like, 2 seconds later, I'm thinking, thank you award, and then I look around and there's somebody that needs help. And that's what keeps me humble, what keeps me going, what keeps me real and raw, because I know there's a lot of need. There's a lot of need in this world, and as long as I live, I am going to serve.
So tell me a little bit about any recommendations that you have for women or young girls that are looking to make a difference in the world, that are looking to kind of, maybe they know what they want to do, maybe they don't. What recommendations would you give to them if you had them right in front of you right now?
Well, I would tell you one big thing, and that is, this makes me cry too. This is what we tell all of our girls, and that would be that I believe in you. And coupled with what my mentor said to me, Lori Hilson said, you are destined for greatness. And I looked at her and I said, I am? And then I came home with tears in my eyes that day, and I told my husband, I said, Lori said that we were destined for greatness. And he looked at me, he's like, we are? Yes, you are, young Latina that is watching. You are destined for greatness, and you are amazing, and I believe in you. And people are watching to see what magic you're creating in your life with your actions, your behaviors, your decisions. You're being watched, you're being supported, and you're being cared for, and you're being loved. And even if you don't feel it, if you go deep in your heart, you will. And that's my biggest advice. Everything else comes in place. And always have a heart of service. Serve other people. Because everything you'll do in life is with people, for people, and through people. And if you can master human relations and use your power and your kindness to elevate other people, you'll achieve every success that you ever dreamed of. And I know that because I'm living this. There's nothing that I've dreamt about that I haven't achieved, and I actually am kind of running out of things to do. So I'm like, I just want to be alive, because I know if I'm alive, every day is magical. So
yes,
that's all I want.
Every day is a blessing.
Yeah.
Very well said. So what are the future plans for Jacqueline Camacho-Ruiz?
Being alive for the next 100 years.
That's important.
So we'll be 136. I have to do the math on what year that is, but serve, vibrate at the frequency of joy, connect with my divine downloads, and transcend.
And lastly, how can we connect with you?
You can connect with me through a variety of ways, as you have done. But todayslatina.com is the movement that you mentioned. That I didn't know that it was a movement, but apparently it is. 152 women, 6 volumes, and over 20 countries involved. And I'm sort of, in the middle of that, and blessed, like you wouldn't believe, to be connected with so many amazing women that just bring so much happiness. JackieCamacho.com is another one, and through all the social media channels. The fun one is on Instagram. That's my Pilotina _official. Pilotina, by the way, means pilot plus Latina.
Okay.
Pilotina. I created the word. It works in Spanish and it works in English. And I speak German too, so
I didn't know that. Okay.
Pilotin is female pilot. So Pilotina without the A is female pilots in German.
Okay.
So
awesome. Well, you're amazing. You're an amazing Latina.
So you are.
God bless you with all your future endeavors, and we can't wait to see what's next for you, and also the way that you're empowering women is very powerful. So I commend you for that, and thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Can we do a pilotina? Basically, just extend your arms and push yourself forward as we're sitting down.
Tell me what to do.
All you need to do, take the piece of paper and ready for takeoff, and all we do is expand our wings and lean forward so we can fly. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Pilotina!
Pilotina!